The last words my father ever said to me before the handcuffs clicked were, "Family should share everything, Jenny." He meant my money, my name, my peace. That morning, I'd watched him smile across a table of relatives acting like a proud father. 2 hours later, I was staring at my bank app, the number $94,000 replaced by $36,027. And when I confronted him when I said, "You stole from me," he didn't even flinch. He laughed. "We needed it more than you." That was the moment something inside me broke, something that no court could ever refund. My name is Jennifer Scott, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes the people who teach you about love are the same ones who teach you about betrayal. The message came late on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Mason's name lit up my screen, a name that still carried equal parts warmth and warning. He wrote that Dad wanted to see me, that he was hosting a family reunion at the old house in Blue Ridge, and that everything was different now, different. I remember whispering that word to myself with a bitter half-smile. My father never changed. He only learned new ways to hide the same rot. It took me 3 days to decide. In the end, I packed my mother's old pocket watch, the last thing she'd ever owned, that he hadn't pawned, and told myself it was just a visit, not forgiveness. As I drove through the winding mountain roads, the sun sank behind the ridges, painting the sky in amber. For a moment, I almost believed the lie that time could soften old wounds. One weekend, I told myself, just one weekend then, I'd leave it all behind again. When the house appeared through the trees, I actually slowed the car. Fresh white paint, polished porch rails, stone pillars glowing under golden lights. The same address, but a stranger's house. He stood waiting on the porch, glass of whiskey in hand, wearing the same grin he used whenever he was about to sell someone a dream. He opened his arms as if none of it had ever happened. The hug smelled of liquor and cheap cologne. "Well," he asked, "what do you think of the place?" "It's beautiful," I said, almost unrecognizable. Over his shoulder, I saw Aunt Evelyn standing by the railing, her eyes caught between affection and warning. As I passed her, she murmured, "Don't believe everything he says, Jen. Some things shine brightest right before they rot." I forced a smile. I only came for dinner, not belief. When I stepped inside, the floors gleamed like a showroom. Every light too bright, every scent too clean. It didn't feel like home, it felt like a performance. If I'd trusted my instinct that night, my bank account and my peace might still be intact. The house didn't feel like memory. It felt like a replica of one. The floors were too new, the walls too pale, the refrigerator humming with stainless perfection. A dozen bottles of French wine lined the counter. Their labels turned out like trophies. My father sat at the head of the table, laughing louder than anyone else, as he bragged about flipping a few houses and hitting it big. The family clapped along, charmed as always. Only Aunt Evelyn stayed quiet. Her eyes locked on me, as if trying to warn me without words. He turned to me with that same honeyed tone I'd heard 1,000 times. "So where are you working now, Jenny?" I told him I ran my own consulting business. He nodded, all pride and calculation. "That's great. So retirement accounts, investments. You must be set up well, huh?" The room felt smaller. The way he said it wasn't curiosity, it was inventory. Under the table, Mason's foot brushed mine, a silent warning, "Stop talking." I smiled and steered the conversation away, but he wouldn't let go. "Heard you're buying a place soon." "Still looking," I said. "Fantastic," he chuckled. "Don't forget to give your old man some investment tips." Across the table, Aunt Evelyn tilted her head. "He's asking a lot of questions," she murmured later when we cleared the dishes. "Probably just curious," I said, though something sharp had already settled under my ribs. After dinner, he uncorked a deep red from Napa, poured me a glass that caught the light like blood. "To my daughter, independent, successful, and finally home," he said. I hesitated, but lifted the glass anyway. The wine was smooth, rich, and bitter at the end. It tasted exactly like the last compliment he'd ever given my mother, right before he borrowed her savings and never paid it back. When I set the glass down, he smiled, satisfied. "See, family reunions can be good for the soul." As he spoke, his eyes flicked to my phone on the table, quick and sharp as a blade catching light. That night, I woke to the faint rhythm of keys clicking. A soft glow leaked from the crack beneath his office door. For a moment, I saw his shadow bent over the desk, hands moving fast across the keyboard. I tried to call out, but the weight behind my eyelids dragged me back under before a word could escape. The smell of coffee pulled me from sleep. Outside birds trilled over the porch. My father was at the stove flipping pancakes like it was the most natural thing in the world. Mason teased him, asking, "Since when he cooked breakfast?" "Since my daughter's home," Frank said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. I sat down, my mouth dry. The bitter trace of last night's wine clung to my throat. I reached into my bag for my phone. Everything seemed untouched, except it wasn't where I'd left it. "Sleep well?" he asked, studying me. Like a rock, I lied. He nodded, pleased. "Good. It's been a long time since you looked this relaxed." Later, Aunt Evelyn joined me on the porch. She lowered her voice. His office light was on past midnight. "Maybe keep your purse close, honey." I laughed it off. "I'm not 6 anymore, Aunt Ev." But when I brushed my sleeve back, a faint mark circled my wrist right where my smartwatch usually sat, the one linked to every financial account I owned. My pulse quickened. I looked up. He was standing at the doorway, smiling softly, eyes unreadable. "That's a nice watch," he said. "Your mother would have been proud." "Yeah, I think she would," I replied, sliding it off and tucking it deep into my bag. We left Blue Ridge that afternoon. As the car rolled down the hill, I glanced in the rearview mirror. He stood on the porch, hand-raised sunlight warming his face, the picture of a kind, aging father. But the longer I looked, the colder it felt. Like the sun wasn't shining on him at all. It was exposing something underneath. 3 days after the reunion, I was back in Asheville, drowning in deadlines and the illusion of normal. On Tuesday morning, I opened Receipt, my banking app, to wire a deposit for the house I'd been dreaming about, and stopped breathing. Balance $36.27. It had been $94,000. My hands went cold. I refreshed the page, logged out, logged back in. Still the same. Then I saw the transfers, 3 withdrawals between 2:17 and 3:58 a.m. Saturday night. The same night I was asleep under my father's roof. The IP address, Blue Ridge, North Carolina. My pulse hammered in my throat as I called the bank. The woman on the line sounded almost bored. "All 3 transactions were verified with your Face ID and device password," she said. "That's impossible," I said. "I was asleep." "I'm sorry, Ms. Scott." The recipient was Frank Scott. "Is he related to you?" Her voice faded into static. My father, the same man who toasted to family, had emptied every cent I owned. I called Mason. My fingers trembled so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. He said he had an investment deal coming through. Mason told me, uncertain. "No, Mason, he didn't make money. He took mine." "You can't know that for sure. I know it the same way I know he's my father." When the call ended, a text from Aunt Evelyn flashed on the screen. "He's done this before. Come see me." She pulled a folder from her drawer and laid it open. Inside was a copy of my mother's life insurance policy. The signature under beneficiary had been changed to my father's, dated the year I turned 17. "He said it was for you," she whispered. But the money vanished with a new car. The air thickened around me. He hadn't relapsed. He'd rehearsed. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the smartwatch I'd worn during that weekend. The faint red mark still circled my wrist. I imagined him bending over me while I slept, lifting my hand toward my phone. My own face unlocking my account. He hadn't just stolen my money, he'd used my body to do it. It wasn't about the dollars. It was about trust, and he'd carved that out of me too. By Thursday, I was past shaking. I was planning. I met Alana Reyes, an old college friend turned financial crime attorney, in her corner office overlooking the misty Blue Ridge skyline. I told her everything. She listened, jaw set, fingers folded like she was holding back judgment. "He'll say you gave him the money," she said finally, "or that you regretted a gift. They always do. What if I don't have proof?" "Then we'll get it." She introduced me to Daniel Price, a private investigator once with the FBI. "You need evidence the law respects," he said, "not what your heart already knows." So I started collecting screenshots, timestamps, IP logs, photos of the wine bottle, even a close-up of the bruise around my wrist. I called Mason again. "When did Dad start bragging about new investments?" I asked. "Last week," he said. He kept saying a big payout was coming. I sent him the statements. For a while, nothing. Then, if you're right, I don't know if I can ever look at him the same way. That night, Alana called. She'd traced the missing money into 3 sub-accounts titled the Scott Family Trust, created within 48 hours of the transfers. Later, Aunt Evelyn handed me a photocopy from 2004, a bank memo about a forged signature from Frank Scott that had been quietly dismissed because he was family. Family. The word made me laugh under my breath, the perfect camouflage for a thief with my last name. I opened my old journal and wrote one line. He taught me that love means control. I'll teach him that boundaries mean justice. For the first time in years, my fear turned into precision. He'd used my own face to rob me. Now I'd use the truth to destroy his. Sleep stopped coming after that call. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face lit by the glow of my stolen life. He hadn't only taken my money, he'd taken my identity, Alana's voice echoed in my head. We can't win unless he exposes himself. Let him believe you've forgiven him. So I called. I told him I'd been harsh, that I wanted to rebuild things, maybe even invest together. His laugh came deep and confident. See, family stays family. That weekend, I drove back to Blue Ridge, pretending to discuss an investment plan. Daniel Price had hidden a camera inside my car key. Mason met me at the door, uneasy. He's thrilled you're coming, he said. Says you finally understand the value of blood. The words chilled me. My father hugged me tight and led me through a house that glittered with my own stolen money. New leather, new speakers, a Rolex flashing on his wrist. He called it the Scott Family Trust, asked me to draw up a plan. I smiled, repeating Alana's warning in my head. Don't get angry. Watch. He'll confess himself. That night he poured wine again, but I barely touched it. You still don't trust me, do you? He asked. Trust isn't something you borrow, I said. He smiled. Trust money, it all circulates in a family. When I'm gone, you'll understand. The camera caught every word. At dawn, Daniel texted, Got it. Clean audio. He's proud of it. But that evening, the bank called. My remaining accounts were frozen. My father had filed a report claiming I'd hacked his data. He'd struck first. I called Mason. Dad says you tried to access his files, he said, torn. He has evidence. What's going on? You believe him over me. I don't know anymore. The line went dead. I sat in the dark, staring at my watch, the same one he'd used to rob me. He'd taken everything, and now he wanted my name too. Within days, the town was whispering. Jennifer Scott under investigation for fraud. Her father helping police. Strangers called me ungrateful. Someone texted, no decent daughter sues her dad. I worked until exhaustion blurred my screen. Then Aunt Evelyn appeared, holding an old folder. It's time you know everything, she said. Inside lay my mother's original insurance papers. The beneficiary was written in her graceful hand, Jennifer Scott. Not Frank. He'd forged the later version. We knew it then. Now we could prove it. I sent copies to Alana. Her reply came fast. This changes everything. It's a criminal pattern now. Before I could breathe, Mason called. Dad's furious. He knows you have something. If you don't drop it, he'll sue you. He's using you, Mason. You don't understand, he's still my father. And he was mine until he stole from my mother. Silence stretched. Then Mason said quietly, he's planning a barbecue this weekend. Says it's for peace. You'll come, right? I looked at the paper in my hands. My mother's handwriting still steady after all these years. Yes, I'll come, but not for peace. The sky was so clear it almost mocked me. I drove back to Blue Ridge with a bag full of truth. The original insurance papers' bank statements, and the recording of my father's voice admitting everything. Alana rode beside me in silence. Sheriff Owens waited 2 streets away, ready to move. Mason was at the grill when I arrived, his smile trembling. You really came. He invited me. I don't plan to miss it. Country music hummed from the speakers, the smell of barbecue thick in the air. My father stood center yard, microphone in hand, beaming. Today, the Scott family reunites, he said proudly. Family is our greatest asset. The word asset sliced through me. When he raised his glass, I stepped forward. I brought a gift, a video. Laughter rippled until Alana pressed play. His voice echoed clear. She slept like a rock. One face scan was all it took. She's still easy to control. Silence fell. Mason's hand dropped the tongs. Aunt Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. My father froze, then forced a laugh. You edited that. Family doesn't do this. That's exactly why I am doing it, I said. Mason slammed his glass. You lied to me too. He held up the forged transfer papers. Then Sheriff Owens entered from the gate, voice firm. Frank Scott, you're under arrest for identity theft, financial fraud, and misuse of family trust funds. My father shouted. You can't arrest a father for family business. You're not my father, I said quietly. Just a thief with my name. As they cuffed him, Mason broke down. I didn't shake. The truth finally spoke for itself. The trial began in early autumn. The Buncombe County Courthouse loomed gray and solemn, its marble pillars cutting against a pale sky. I walked in beside Alana, my chest heavy but steady. Across the room, my father sat in a worn suit, pretending at calm he no longer owned. His lawyer stood first, voice slick and confident. Mr. Scott didn't steal anything he said. This was a family misunderstanding, not a crime. The money was a gift. Alana rose without a word and began laying evidence on the table one by one, the audio recording of his confession, the bank logs showing the transfers between 2 and 4 a.m., from a Blue Ridge IP address, my mother's original insurance papers with her authentic signature, and Mason's statement confirming the coerced transfers. Each document hit the table like a quiet hammer. The room fell still. When the judge finally looked up and asked, Do you have anything to say for yourself? Mr. Scott? My father turned toward me with that familiar smirk. I only wanted to teach her a lesson. I'm her father. No, I said, my voice calm. You're just the first man who taught me how deceit works. The verdict came down clean and final. Frank Scott, guilty of financial fraud, identity theft, and unlawful conversion of assets. Sentence 4 years probation restitution of $94,000 plus interest and 300 hours of community service. He went pale, jaw clenched. As the bailiff took his arm, he hissed, You'll regret this. Blood doesn't change. I met his eyes. It doesn't have to. I've already changed my name. A week later, I signed the papers cutting Scott from my life for good. My hand didn't tremble. The ink dried like closure. Outside the courthouse, Aunt Evelyn met me on the steps and pulled me into her arms. You've rewritten the family name the right way, she whispered. Through justice, not blood. And as the cold wind swept through the square, I realized something simple and absolute justice isn't loud. It's the silence that comes after the noise finally stops. A year later, the world had gone quiet in the best way. My house sat at the edge of a lake outside Asheville, small and still the kind of place where mornings felt like forgiveness. Sunlight slipped through the pine trees, dancing on the ripples of the water. On the kitchen table rested my mother's pocket watch, its hands ticking softly, still keeping perfect time. Every Sunday, Aunt Evelyn stopped by with her apple pie, the smell of cinnamon trailing behind her like comfort. Mason came too, sometimes fixing the roof or trimming the hedges. He always smiled, that weary, almost hopeful smile. I still think he could have changed, he said once. He didn't need to. I told him. He just needed to leave our lives. When they left, the house grew quiet again, peaceful, not empty. I opened my laptop and logged into my new bank account. The number blinked back at me, $94,000, the same amount he took, the same amount I reclaimed. I stared at it for a long time, waiting to feel something: relief, triumph, revenge. But all I felt was stillness. It was just a number now, a marker of what I'd survived, not what defined me. I closed the laptop and poured myself a cup of coffee. The steam rose into the chill of morning as I stepped onto the porch. The air smelled of pine and distant rain. Across the lake, fog began to lift, revealing the faint reflection of the mountains. The old me would have called this solitude. The new me called it peace, because for the first time my life wasn't measured in what had been taken, but in what I'd chosen to keep. I ran my fingers over the pocket watch again, remembering how my father once used my face to steal from me. Now this watch, my mother's time, my time was mine alone. They once drained my account, but they can never withdraw from me again.